disconnected, and they don't have that regular, thing that they're used to. And so it's causing a lot of pain and discomfort. So tell us a little bit about what you're talking to your clients about at the moment.
Okay. So I guess like at the moment we're all being literally asked or almost forced to really reassess what's happening, how we're living our life. It's throwing us out of our comfort zone if we're having big changes right now. Some of us have, businesses stopping, homeschooling, everything's completely different, right? So we're having to face a lot of new ways of living. And some of us can keep going more or less the same way as before, and others, everything's different. So everyone will hear different advice here, but really overall, I feel like it's really important to remember that if our comfort zone is very challenged right now, because change is there, we need to remember that our subconscious is trying to keep us safe and trying to keep us in the known. No matter if it was comfortable or not, it will just say, but it's so much better than anything else. And so we need to remember that it's not really necessarily true. It's just the fear speaking. So if we are faced to do something completely different right now, maybe taking it as an opportunity to really look at what is more in alignment with who I am, with my values, what's really, truly important to me. And can I create a life that serves that better? So if I have to stop my work right now, which I don't luckily, but so many people have to right now, to really see how can I still get out there and offer what I've got and help people in a way that might serve my values better. Maybe I want to spend more time with my family, or maybe I want to spend more time generally looking after my own needs as well. So then in that way we can create our life in alignment with those values and needs, and find a way to share what we've got to offer to the world in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So I see it as an opportunity for everyone, no matter if big or small adjustments. It's just really a time to reassess and get really aligned.
Yeah. With what you said there, like how can we still continue to help people? I think a lot of people don't realize the impact that they have on other people's lives just in doing what they do normally. And you sort of get into this normal habit of just, this is what I do every single day. That's my life. That's who I am. That's what I do. But a lot of people, you're helping and adding value to their life every single day. And a lot of people don't value that and within themselves. And that's, and when you do realize that, you want to try and get out and continue to help, even if it's through a digital method. And, you don't have to be a coach or a consultant or someone like that to be able to still continue to provide services to.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many amazing ways, like, if you generally offer a service like electricity, right? It's like maybe then teaching people simple things just to keep on top of mind awareness as well. Like maybe hopping on YouTube and creating videos, or maybe seeing how else you help support people when you're going to their homes. Like maybe you talk to them, maybe you love connecting with people. Maybe there's a different way to share what else you've got that is not usually in the spotlight, but maybe it really wants to be expressed. And now is a time where we can move forward with that more, sharing our gifts. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So what we are always putting ourselves into this place that people find uncomfortable. The place that people are finding themselves right now, I push myself into that. That's sort of where I live.
Same.
So I totally get how people are feeling, and we're constant, and that's what forces change for the positive. You know, it's uncomfortable and as painful, and as much as you don't like it right now, it's forcing you to make positive changes. And some of the examples that we have through our electrical business is we like to always try and demonstrate how we are different, how we care, and how we, want to go above and beyond for our customers. So some things just with this coronavirus thing at the moment is we take in a tub of hand sanitizer in our hand when we rock up at the door, and we put it on their bench, and we wash our hands in front of them and demonstrate that we're doing that. Another thing that we do as a service in general is we spray and wipe the switches that we touch. Everything that we got, we got a bottle hanging out of our tool belt as a part of our equipment, to make people feel comfortable around us. And then that's what makes them feel good, rather than feeling in fear of this person may be taking making me sick.
Yeah.
You know, so I think everyone needs to think outside the box on how you can create that difference that makes people feel comfortable and empowered around you as well.
So that's talking really connection, right? It's like connecting with them and their fears and their feelings. And when you point them out and you don't give that elephant in the room that space and actually just go, look, I know there's the elephant in the room. It's called the virus. And, you know, this is how I handle it. Then that takes it away, because no one's, you know, kind of umming and ahhing around the fact that there is something in the room, right? So I feel like this is the way forward. It's about being honest with truth. What's there? What are we talking about? And let's be honest and talk it through. Yeah. And from any industry angle, really, that's the best way. Not just pretending it's not there, because that's not going to help. But if we talk about it and how we can manage it in whatever industry we're in, we can move through it.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about a couple of things that you just talked about. First of all, you're talking about connection. I'd like to talk about disconnection. And I'd like to talk about how people don't talk about things that are bad in front of anyone else.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind.
Totally, that's fine. So what would you like to talk about with connection?
So we talked about how we can create a connection and make people feel comfortable. And with disconnection at the moment, we're forced into our homes into, you know, and we're removed from our natural instinct of being a part of communities and around people and smiling and laughing. And I definitely found myself laughing less since being at home, because I'm a people person. I like to be out and I'll muck around and I'll jump around and laugh a lot. But since being in the house, there's something definitely going on there where I'm not laughing as much. And I realized that the other night I was sitting there and I decided to watch, I don't usually watch TV, but I was watching something, just funny clips of movies that I love. And I was just cracking up and I go, this is what I'm missing, laughter. But that's caused from me being disconnected from the outside world. So how do you think, that's one example of how I'm personally experiencing it at the moment, but what are some other things that you're noticing with your clients that this disconnection that's been forced upon us and the impact that it's having on people's lives?
Okay, so I'm going to go more into, like, I guess my work here, because the way I see, like, the way we can connect deeply with ourselves is, and this is sounding maybe a bit woo-woo for some of you, but just bear with me and just come with me on this journey. So I use the term spirit embodiment. So this is coming from the perspective of we're all body, mind, and spirit. And I see us all as one. So as an integrated being, we want to be spirit embodied. We want to have our spirit fully in our body, claiming all the cells with our own spirit. So most people in the world do not live like that at all. So when we are in the body, really spirit embodied, we are fully present, we're focused, we're super productive, we're confident, we feel calm and really relaxed in the body. We can feel open, we can feel connecting to ourselves and others. The more connected we are to ourselves, the more connected we will be to our loved ones and the world. So anything that is not fully, or anyone that is not fully embodied, will experience some form of disconnection. So the more we have trauma or baggage or emotional stuff there, or conditioning, the must, the shoulds, force ourselves into things, whatever it is, it will push us out of the body. So if we don't feel calm, relaxed, and content, and like kind of at ease inside, we know there's something triggered up. It's never our own fault. It's just our responsibility to do something about it. Yeah. So the more we're out of body, the less focused we are, the more scattered we are, the more fearful we become, the more anxious we become, the more reactive we become. So this is not a state that we are in. Like, I'm not saying I'm always spirit embodied and you're not, or whatever. It doesn't work like that. We're all humans and we're all in the same experience of life. We all face triggers every day. We cannot control that. Like, whatever happens, happens, right? But we can control the way we are responding on the inside. And this is not just mindset work. Mindset goes a really far way, but our sensations are physical, and we need to clear the charge we have around situations and sensations. Even having a certain emotion can bring up a fear or trigger or response in us. So the more we clear the charge around here, and the more we free ourselves of all those patterns that disconnect us from fully being in our body, the more we can be embodied, more and more present, more and more connected with ourselves, and therefore the world. So at the moment, we and humanity all over the world faces a lot of triggers, and they are bringing up fears and other emotions, uncertainty, all the sort of stuff that disconnects us, because the emotional charge that's surrounded, the memory, the remembering of when that happened before, a lot of war trauma is coming up, all the stuff's up, and people don't even know that that's up. They don't even know why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And it's because our subconscious is unpacking all these layers of all these lifetimes that have been there before, which we don't know of in our conscious mind. And they push us out of our body, and therefore then we might feel more disconnected, or we might have like a restless, grumpy feeling, or we might feel really frowny and we don't even know really why, because everything's kind of fine in our own life, but maybe not. And you know, all these things come up and that disconnect us from ourselves and our truth. And so the more we can actually be, first of all, aware there is stuff that's triggered up, and it's not our own fault, it's just a situation, and we can just clear it and move on with that, so that we can fully move forward in a very empowered way and a connected way.
Yeah, I totally believe in what you're saying. Like for me, if my attention is in the future, or if my attention is in the past, that's when I feel uncomfortable. I get hyper alert and hyper focused into things that may not matter. And, you know, I go into this definitely a very selfish space. Like it's almost like I close off the outside world. I find it hard to disconnect with my family and to slow down. I go faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
So in saying that, what are some things that we can do to bring ourselves back and not think about the fear and what ifs, and, you know, or it's because of that, or it's because of that, you know, like what are some things that we can do? What practical things can we do to bring that back together?
Okay. So, to answer that, I feel like I need to first talk about a different trauma types or stress response types that we have, or that we are, because we all have a default pattern that we go to. And what you're describing is the fight one, like that, when you're saying you want to like get, you know, really laser focused on march on, and it gets really tight, and it's almost like you're disconnecting from the rest of the world and get into this laser focus. It's the same type I've got. It's the fight one. But others go into flight, and others again go into freeze. So we all have a different default pattern. We sometimes might, you know, jump to the other ones too, but generally we have one main one that we run with when we're under stress. And so for all of you listening to this, you can assess yourself. Are you jumping when you're in stress, or when you have something coming up? Do you jump to your mind going, how can I solve this issue? What can I do? Let me get onto it, and hammer away with your tasks and actions. And that's fight, right? Same. Or are you going into, oh, it's all not that bad, let me run away, I'm out of here, you know, like actually literally just denying it's all not happening, let's just, you know, it's all good, and da-di-da, but still not quite onto it. Then that's more like we need to come back and refocus. And then the third one is the freeze one, where you might go blank, you might have a literally this like moment of
paralysis.
You can't, it's a paralysis. You can't even think clearly. You're like completely swamped, overwhelmed. Literally, people sometimes sit and they just stare, or they stare for a while and then they can't handle it. Then I need to run out the room. So that's freezing. Or they go so tired that they cannot face the world anymore. So if you've been facing a lot of tiredness and you find it hard to get out of bed at the moment, it's because the stress is up. And your default pattern will mean freezing. Again, it's not your fault, but we all have different ways to manage it. So for the fighters, I would say definitely take time out to defrag and integrate. So if you're noticing you're getting too much laser focus on, and you're running with solutions, and let's find a solution, hammer on and bang on until we're there, I'd say make sure you schedule in, even if it's 5-minute breaks or 1 hour a day or a week, or whatever you can manage to scrape to the side right now. I mean, if you have more space, if you don't have kids, you might be able to free up more time right now. But just find yourself some windows that you can schedule into your calendar and really stick to, like an appointment. And then you'll give yourself space to defrag. Either go, I don't know, for a walk, if you make it somewhere where there's no people around, but just taking that nature space. You could go and sit and meditate if you know how to do that. If you think too much and you're totally like your brain's exploding, then take a blank piece of paper and do a brain dump, meaning you write your name and your date and just literally everything that's on your mind on there, and don't stop before your brain is empty, no more thoughts floating around. So that's another way, just to defrag and come back in and calm your nervous system down, taking deep breaths and really feeling the weight in your body where you're sitting or standing, really feeling into yourself and coming back to your own center. So there's a lot of different tools that can be applied, but the main thing is to come back and give yourself a little bit of space to even debrief with yourself. What have I been doing? What's been working? What hasn't been? And what can I do instead? Just to really come back and then get refocused again. Am I running away on something, a tangent, or am I actually being really present to what's really important right now?
Yeah.
So that's the main thing, I think, for fighters.
So also, because I'm a fighter, apparently.
Yeah.
So I've just got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Should we take a phone on that walk?
Well, if you just need it for the time, you can close it up and have it in your hand and walk, but do not put on flight mode if you have to.
Yeah.
So it's really to disconnect, if you disconnect of the tech world as well. Yeah. So put on flight mode if you can, if you need the clock as that, or you want the camera there, whatever, but do not have it to pick up phone calls. Do not use it to escape into a fake sense of connection with someone, because if you're feeling disconnected, you first of all need to connect with yourself, because otherwise any connection with any other people won't count anyway. It's like a distraction of what's coming inside, what's coming up inside.
Sure.
So the thing is, with all the patterns, is that they are facing, we have this escape way of going away from what we're feeling inside. And when we have to come back to the space and we feel this whirlwind inside, we might not like it. We might have a charge around that. And that's really hard for people to face too at the moment, because they have to be at home or they have to do things differently. They might have more time on hand, but not get anything done. And then they get more and more frustrated if they're doers, right? Yeah. So it's really important to be kind and mindful with yourself too, and it's okay that there's stuff up at the moment, because it is really challenging. And so just to even grant that permission to yourself to have stuff coming up, and it's okay. You don't have to always be able to manage it all by yourself, and that's completely fine. And reaching out for support, getting help with clearing, getting help with even hopping on Zoom and connecting with some other people in your industry or different industries, just to connect in a sense of not jumping on a call and repeating the same trauma, but more so how can we come together and support each other to be more proactive, because then we'll bring more positivity in again and more connection, rather than just going over the same drama and the same news that you're already hearing in the news, and that sort of stuff. That's all just going to reinforce the same drama and the same pain inside.
Yeah, totally. So the reason I asked about the phone is because if I take my phone, it won't be that, finding myself moment. So I will, if it's near me or even on me, I just can't do it. So that's the reason I asked that. And the second thing you said about a fighter was to write down. So I personally have found writing in third person, looking objectively at my actions, has been so powerful for me personally. And looking at it from you were doing this and you were doing that, and you're feeling like this at the moment, and did you act correctly there, and asking questions to myself, that's been super powerful. So it's interesting that you said, because those two things are probably the things that I go to when I realize I got a question. How do you because I find when I'm in that state, I don't know I'm in it until I almost break. So how do you know?
Yeah, it does take a lot of, I guess, the understanding of yourself to be able to pull yourself up. If you feel like you don't have that ability yet, that skill set yet to pinpoint it when it's happening, then I would say, if you have a partner, say to your partner, can you please pull me up when I get in my tunnel mode? Yeah, then they can remind you. nicely, not like blamingly, right? And so you can use that. If you don't have a partner, or you don't feel like your partner would be able to do that in a way that doesn't trigger you, then set yourself reminders on your phone and just say, hey, are you in tunnel vision or are you in expanded vision? That's, for example, like, that's a way to do it. But there's so many different ways. Like, I would just set some sort of reminder or make a note and put on the wall where you go, maybe in the bathroom, where you walk past and you just check, just like a little self-reflection moment. Am I completely like up here firing on a million cylinders, or am I actually really deeply resting my body and calm? Well, if I'm not, then I'm most likely up there, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Cool. So what about the people who go into flight mode?
Let's go back to that. So with the flight mode people, I would suggest, it's kind of like always facing the opposite, right? So you want to from fight instead of running away, seeing if you can take 3 deep breaths and actually see what you're looking at and see whether you can see, whether you can see some sort of, like what it would mean in the most horrendous version of it and in the best outcome version. Like allowing yourself to see the whole spectrum of the situation and allowing yourself to look at all the so-called facts, the information we've got that we can pick from, but still remaining with yourself and just seeing it like a movie or like a book that you're flicking through and just looking at them all and taking them into account, acknowledging them and acknowledging your own feelings towards what they bring up. That's kind of alone is like a really good way to just calm down the system. If you can't handle it and you need to like run away literally out of the room, then that's okay. And then just taking breath and then coming back to it and seeing if you can talk about what's coming up or whether you can voice it to yourself what's coming up. That's a way as well. For the extreme positive thinkers that go more into like, oh, it's all not that bad and let's just pretend it's not happening, that's kind of a flight as well. In that moment, I would still say, hey, let's literally still bring in the facts. We don't have to fear them. We don't have to jump into a pool of worry and fear and uncertainty. That's not what it is, but it's more like, just let's assess what's there. Let's just look at it like a landscape. It's okay that it's there. And then still just keeping all of that in view is really important, not just to run with one and block everything else out.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I was going to say with that, I like to teach my coaching clients. I actually had a client yesterday, we were talking about, he was feeling uneasy about the situation. Like he had a really good month and then in his business, and he was worried that he wouldn't be able to do that again and again and again. It was like an exceptional month. So I was like, don't put that as your new normal, because if you make that your new normal, you're always going to fall a bit under. So what we did is we deconstructed it. I said, let's look at what it looks like if you make no money next month. And make you feel comfortable about that. Yeah. And after that session, we tore down all of the things that were going to be costs to the business and everything. Yeah. And he felt empowered because he knew very, very worst case scenario, he was going to be okay.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's a big thing. I reckon like just knowing the facts, knowing where you're at, knowing how it's looking for you rather than burying your head in the sand and freaking out inside, but kind of running away from it. Like just looking at it, assess it once, then you know it, and then build from there. It's always the best way, right? And that keeps everyone empowered, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah. And for the freezers, taking some form of action is really important. So often it's really hard to take any action, right? When it's like freezing state, it's like literally you can't even think straight. So it's important to do something that brings you back to a calm nervous system state. So again, breathing, some form of exercise, just taking a moment back from definitely not watching news and like really literally switching off technology and coming back to the self, but also seeing what is the one thing I can do right now, just one thing, even if it's not directly related, just to get a bit of movement back. And then the mind can settle, the nervous system can come back to a more parasympathetic nervous system state, calming down, and then the head will kick in again and we can see clearer what we need to do. Yeah.
Awesome. So what are some things that people, like we talked about before we started, as a sabotage and resistance to change? So what are some things that we can talk about around that?
Yep. Okay. So the main thing is that, first of all, with the pattern of expanding our comfort zone and going into like a more expanded state. First of all, our dreams and what we want to achieve, like let's say business is, the numbers we want to reach, the possibly scaled version of our business, freedom, time freedom, money freedom, whatever it is that we want to create with the business that we have. Still keeping that on the horizon, right? So that is often in danger zone. Yeah. So the most fulfilling way of living is usually in danger zone for us. So our comfort zone is where we are right now and what feels comfortable for our subconscious. Whatever we want to create in life is often in a danger zone. So as we're expanding our comfort zone, and we want to imagine like a round carpet under our feet on the ground, and we have a pillar in the center, and we have an elastic band around our legs. And if we're walking to the edge of that comfort zone, we're starting stretching that elastic band. And the next like circular carpet out is the learning zone. And this is where we, expand. We have mentors and masterminds and courses and this and that. We're learning, we're expanding, we're doing new stuff all the time, but we're still kind of in flow, right? But then we're stretching that elastic band even more. And as we reach that end of learning zone, we hit danger zone. And so it's not really dangerous, but our subconscious thinks we are too far away from where we've been. And we reach that room of end of stretch of the elastic band, and it literally flings us back. And we end up either where the pole was or even further back. And we think, most people think, what on earth did I do wrong? Like, what on earth do I need to do? I did something wrong. I need to go a different way. It didn't work for me. Yeah. And this is the problem, because people then try and then they bounce back, and then they try somewhere else and they come back. And this is how they do it the whole life. And they think it's them, they're a loser, they can't do it, they're not successful because they can't seem to get there. And it's not true. So this is a big myth in thinking in people. And it's really important to know that it's not a question, what did I do so right that I hit that point? It was so on track. What can I do to get back there as quick as possible? What did I do so right? And then tracing back the steps, and what did you do really well? So with this change right now, it's like we're being forced, if we're forced to change our job setup, our daily setup at the moment, where it's not like the usual expansion of an entrepreneur or growing your business journey. It's like a forced knockback, right? So now we still need to see what worked before we were knocked back, what worked really well, what felt really awesome, and what didn't. So our mind often wants to go when we lose something. It's like grieving a person too when they pass. It's the same thing, a business when you can't have it right now, the daily flow that you can't have right now. There's an aspect of it that we really miss, and the rest wasn't that great anyway. But what our mind does is it says the bit that's missing now is the only thing that I really want, and I haven't got it anymore.
Yeah.
And then our brain goes into grief and freak out. And really, it's an illusion, because certain things are awesome and the rest isn't. So now what we need to do is breaking down what is the awesome bit that you're missing, and then we can work on how can we recreate that right now in a different way that gets us still there, but also taking into account what didn't work and see what we can make better out of that now. So as a tangible example, let's say if we had a business that we were really busy and we didn't get any connection time with family. We wanted to have connection time, but we didn't have time for it. We were feeling really exhausted, but the revenue was great. Let's just say that, right?
Yeah.
So then now not being able to work in this business might mean no revenue or very, very small revenue. But you might be able to create more time with your family right now, find more time to connect with yourself or them. And it's an opportunity to create a block of time in a day, or every day in a week, or one day in a week, where you really put time aside that you usually don't have, to really reassess how can I create more flow in my life that creates more fulfillment on all levels. So it's like a real reassessment time and working on the business time, making sure that maybe your marketing is really out there, that you're being seen and noticed, that maybe you're usually way too busy to do that. So maybe now is the time to really share with people what's important to you, what you stand for in your business, and still be seen, so that once they can go ahead again and, you know, place orders or call people in for their services, they still remember you. They still know that you're there. Yeah. And at the same time, see if you can restructure your day so you can create that connection, that more freedom feeling or restoration of yourself, self-care that you would usually not do, and see how you can set up new habits and patterns that you can then keep going after we start again too in a normal way, or maybe won't start in a normal way, whatever that might look like.
Yeah, totally. I think, you know, a lot of people feel like because it's not what it was, now it's bad. Yeah. But instead of looking at and being grateful for the opportunity we've been given, which is to shift our thinking and see what we've got right now without that, that we were so focused on before. Yeah. So what a great point that you've made there. It's really, really, really good. So does that fall into like being able to step back and, you know, take the breaks, taking breaks
When I say take the breaks off, that actually goes way, way deeper. So the points that I'm sharing are more, I guess, more coaching, mentoring perspective. Yeah. But the clearing work that I do is much deeper. So I take, for example, if we have, for example, we're stretching our comfort zone right now, in whatever way, shape or form that might look like. We might have stuff coming out. We might have tiredness come up. We might have fear or overwhelm come up. We might simply freak out. We might have procrastination come up. We might have all the good thoughts in our head, what we're going to do, but we can't do it. So all the stuff, that's emotional baggage. So it's stuff that goes back to like our subconscious thinking. So the way I always see it is like tip of the iceberg. If you imagine the tip of the iceberg out of black waters somewhere, you know, in North Pole or wherever, you see the tip of the iceberg, and then that is our conscious mind. But whatever's under the black water, we have no idea how big it is. We don't know, you know, how deep it goes, how fast it reaches, what it looks like. So all we can do is tap in the dark, really. And that's our subconscious. So our subconscious is made up of 40% of, about roughly 40% of 40 generations that came before us. So that's the collective memory, the collective memory of suffering, of beliefs, of conditioning, of experiences, of stuff that's happened to the collective. So that means if there was persecution happening in the medieval times, it's still going to affect 40% of our thinking now and how much we share our truth with the world. Wow. So that's big. And then there's also our own past life experiences, which are hugely important, and people mostly don't even know about them. And then there's our own experiences that we've had in this lifetime round, from 3 years or 5 years of age or birth or whatever you're talking about. Any time in our life, we make decisions all the time without realizing it. So an example is we fall down the stairs, we hurt ourselves, we can say, I hate stairs. I don't want to go stairs again. You know, dodgy example, but you know what I mean?
It makes sense though. Yeah.
And then we experience something, maybe someone breaks up. I'll never do that again. I'll never open my heart again. Why would I do that, right? Yeah. So we make these decisions. And that's what's then locked into our body. Our body is a representative of our subconscious. So the only way that we can truly access our subconscious is by listening to our body and being able to understand it. So we don't learn how to understand our sensations and our body at all. We should learn it at school, but we're not. And so this is like a whole new field for so many people. And the way I work is like, I take all these sensations into account. I read the body. I've been doing it for my whole life, but especially for 16 years with all my clients. Yeah. And we can quickly and really, really potently and effectively release the charge that's there around situations, emotions, triggers, and we can just clear it. So for example, like a really simple, quite for me, very superficial example, but it might, land for some people. So let's say when I was little, I couldn't handle going to sleep in a room that was messy. Like I had to put things in order and then I could sleep at peace, right? Yeah. So later, having kids and working from home on my laptop or whatever, I'd have to clear up at least the table, make sort of orderly space so I could get into the flow of it, right? So then when I did my work later, and with kids around, often then tidying up around the place, you're not actually getting done what you need to get done because you're busy tracing the steps, right? So then when I learned my clearing work a few years ago, my husband said before I came home after an 8-day training, is like, things will be in different spots. Can you just make sure you're clear that it's okay if things are not in order, right? So I was like, yeah, sure, okay. So I cleared it on the way back because, you know, you can quickly self-clear as well. I came home and he was like kind of looking for my response. And I was like, yeah, sure, plates on all different places and everything's in different places, but who cares, right? And I was like, oh, maybe it's just, like, you know, I've been away for 8 days. It's cool, I'm all relaxed.
Yeah.
And he was thinking the same, right? And then a few days later, I was sitting there at the computer doing my work, really in the zone. And he came home and he was like, you did clear that really well, didn't you? And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, it's freaking messy in here. And I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I don't care. I'm doing something. Yeah. So I was like, working on. And then a few days later, he came home again and went like, kind of still the same. And I'm like, yeah, what's the problem? And he's like, well, shall I help you? Shall we do it together? Let's do it together. And I'm like, well, yeah, if it's that important to you, we can.
Wow, that's unreal.
So that's for me.
So
it's like,
was that your first experience of that happening to you?
No. But it's just something that whenever I have told it before, people can relate to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but there's a million examples. Like seriously, I've done clearing work for the last 9 years, especially for the last 3, specifically with what I'm doing, and just the changes and the potent shifts we can have with huge stuff. Just to make up an example, if someone lost their grandma and she couldn't focus on her business on that day whatsoever. It was like so fresh. And of course, I didn't even expect her to be on the call, but she didn't tell me before the call. Yeah. And so she was sitting there sobbing, like completely freaked out. And I was like, okay, obviously we can't work in the business today, but we can bring you back. So then we cleared the grief, the charges that were around that come up and so on. And at the end of the course, she was very calm and she could then focus again, not on her business, but to come back. Self-care, but she was calm and she could function. And soon after, like we could pull out very fast, which is amazing considering that it's something that people would struggle with for years. So that's just one example, like of this is a big situation here, right? So clearing doesn't mean that we cut something away and it's never there again. What it means is that we clear the charge around something. So any situation that we feel charge around, charge meaning any triggers, meaning you might get grumpy, restless, angry, frustrated, sad, stressed, anxious, contracted, tense, anything. We all have different ways and different emotions that come up. But let's say you're being told you have to lock down your business right now. And it brings up emotions, right? Like whatever they might look like, or that tense you up, or you're freaking out inside, or you might go, oh shit, what can I do now? Or you go, oh my goodness, and you freeze, whatever it is, right? So all these responses can be cleared in the sense of that once we clear the charge around them and around these emotions, we can come back to a place of really solid inner certainty where we can hear something that would usually throw us out completely and would take us days or weeks or months or even years to get over. We can just look at it, we can face it quickly, briefly, and move on. And that's a massive difference. So
with the clearing work, is there a specific technique that you follow for that? Is that?
Yeah, so at the starting, the very base level is something that Dane Thomas has created, which is Clear Your Shit. And there is a free training series that you can download online. So that would be something you can do in your own time at the moment at home. It's at clearyourshit.com. That's literally what it's called, or one word. The way I do it is like I use the Spiral, which is also created by Dane Thomas. So I'm an advanced the Spiral practitioner. So I guide people through an 8-week process where we clear the charge around all these emotions, from shame and guilt and dogma all the way up to joy and pure bliss and enlightenment and purpose. So that no matter what comes up in the day, we don't feel so triggered and wrapped up in it. But I've combined it with my own work that I've created over the last 16 years. And so I pull in a lot of different modalities, my own modality that I've created, the footprint connection. And so I really bring it back to the body, to past lifetimes, and we recreate a lot. And we also clear any interferences and entities and all sorts of stuff as well. That might sound very woo-woo and out there for some people, but it's very tangible when we do it. Work with lots of business people, and it's amazing to see the results. And it really just clears all the stuff, because we're all humans, we all have emotions and sensations. And a lot of people have been told that what they're feeling, they should get over. Or, don't worry. So don't be, just get over it.
Stop thinking about it.
Yeah, right. And just think a bit more positive. Or why would you do that? Like that's all stuff that we can easily say to someone else. But if it comes to ourselves, it's hard, right? We all probably know that. And so this is the part where the clearing comes in, and it is so important because we cannot expect ourselves to solve the issues just from the conscious mind and ignoring that whole bottom of the iceberg, because it is really relevant. Because when it comes to situations where we put our mindset into it, and a lot of you guys might do a lot of mindset work, which is great. It's really, really, really important, and we cannot go without it, but it's not going to shift the whole iceberg, not the whole tip underneath it. It won't be affected by that. So the more we can clear what's there, and our mind gives us continuously the opportunity by scooping up what's in the unconscious and brings it back in mirrors. And so if we face any difficulties in life, they are a mirror of a part in us that we haven't looked at yet, that we either over or under express. And they're all parts of us. So the way we can then look at it is like really looking at what the triggers are, and either consciously try to see the shadow part and see the light part of it and see if we can flick the shadow, which is a bigger thing that, you know, I could talk to you about another time because it's probably like a bigger process.
Yeah.
But there is that from the conscious perspective. But then still, we sometimes have to really acknowledge some deep experiences that we've had in the past life, that without experiencing them, and actually not experiencing them, like acknowledging them and seeing what we've locked in and why, and actually taking that piece of understanding back to us, without that, it won't let go. So all these messages we're getting through the body, through sensations, are there for a reason. They're like messages. And if we try to ignore them and run away from them and push them away, they're just going to get more and more and more annoying, or they duck around and come back in a different way.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Do you think that with working with so many people now over so many years, some of the realizations that they have in the past, have you got some examples like they may not have been completely aware of, and then, you know, they've been acting off these triggers for so long, and like it might be a bird tweeting or a horn honking or, you know, something that they didn't even realize, and it would flip them into a really uneasy state. Have you got some examples that people might be able to go like, oh yeah, I actually do react quite randomly to those things?
Okay. Well, one example is, I mean, there's a million examples really. So first of all, I feel like we need to explain how a situation gets locked into the subconscious. And I'm not going to use neuro-linguistic programming terms right now, but actually just plain lingo so that everyone can get it.
Yeah, sure.
So I'd like to break it down. So just simply imagining you experience something, and if it's too intense for our body and consciousness to process in that moment, we'll lock it away. So that traps the emotion. So the way that gets stored in our brain is literally like, imagine a porcelain plate and chucking on the ground, and it's like splitters into a million different pieces. And then someone goes and grabs that and sprinkles them over our head and brain like salt and pepper, right? Like just sprinkle a dose of that over there. So you don't know where it gets stored in the brain. Some of those areas are governing the smell senses, the others are our sound and visuals. So we have all these different parts in our body that, different areas in our brain that get to store these little sprinkles, these little porcelain pieces. And whenever we experience something that kind of docks onto one of those porcelain pieces, it would trigger up the event. So what happens is, one random example would be like if you as a 3-year-old fall down a steep staircase in an old building, maybe it's an old farmhouse, it's a bit musty, you fall down the stairs, there's no one around, no one knows even that you were there, you might have been there against someone's will, so you feel guilty and you hurt yourself, and you're all kind of contracted and you go, oh, I'm all alone and no one's going to help me now or something, right? So if you just say like, let's say we've experienced that, then we might completely forget about this, right? We might be 30, 40, 50 or 60 years of age now, and looking back, we can't remember how we felt when we were 3. We won't even remember it. But we might hate going into old farmhouse buildings that smell a bit musty, and then get a bit grumpy and, you know, don't even know why. But then if we see a staircase and that musty smell in an old building, we might all of a sudden have a trigger up, and we feel like a 3-year-old, and we have a tantrum like a 3-year-old, and then afterwards go, what on earth happened to me right now? Or just then, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I felt like I was acting like a 3-year-old, yeah? And we don't know why. And the reason is because that memory got triggered up, and we feel literally exactly like in the moment when it happened. And so this happens to a lot of people all the time. We all have that happening, but not necessarily with this example. It can mean that you get triggered about people blowing the horn at you. You might feel a bit of a rush of like adrenaline pumping up. You don't even know, like, don't even think about it really, you know, or people getting, or someone shouting at you. You might hate it. Yeah, there's a reason to this. Or you might hate it when you get angry yourself and you try to just be all happy and cheery all the time. Or you might hate it when you feel really, you know, like, I don't know, like when someone gets really judgmental around you, you might think, oh, that's so rude. I'm not judgmental. Never, right? So all these things can be stuff that's hiding in the subconscious. All these reactions and patterns, and a lot of them are hiding, meaning we can't see it ourselves. Yeah.
So when these are happening, do you find that, you know, if you're creating this alternative energy, or you're moving away from the situation or whatever, like those examples you were just giving, like you hate being unhappy, so you're always happy. Is that a problem? Because people aren't actually sitting there going, I feel sad right now, and they're not acknowledging the true feeling that they're feeling.
Yeah, so if they're like faking happiness and like, I'm so cheerful, that's so good, there's no problems in the world, then that's total denial. So it's running away from something. So we can't truly be in our body and really actually just at peace and really truly fulfilled if we're running away from something. So the more we acknowledge the dark, we can live the light. Yeah. So the more we actually, and look, let me bring up an example myself, right? So for example, was it 7 years ago now, we nearly went bankrupt with a business that I had with my husband. And bankruptcy was the thing that I would not want to face. Like, yeah, I felt like so unsuccessful in a moment. I would never have believed that I could be on an interview many years later and talk about this, right? But I have been on stage with this, it's fine. But in the past, like, I literally would have wanted to like melt into the ground, you know, and not be known for that. I didn't go bankrupt in the end. We could, you know, create something different, and it worked, and we could sell. But it still brought up a lot of stuff. And after I went, okay, done with that chapter now. Now I'm 100% on purpose. I'm going to create my own 100% aligned business, which I did. Let's forget about that part, right? So for a few years, I literally ran away from that, right? I ran away from what it taught me. I looked a little bit at, oh yeah, I've learned lots. That was about it. Yeah, I learned lots and ran away from it. And the day when I actually allowed myself to look at it and really address it and clear the trauma around it that I had, and I could fully embrace it and start talking about it, because I've learned so much from it. In that moment, a lot shifted for me in my business, in my life, everywhere, because I could literally allow this piece of shadow stuff that I wanted to run away from, that I felt shameful about, and I could embrace it and bring it back in and actually realize what it's been doing for me. And when I embraced that part, the whole thing let go. It's not an issue at all. And nothing of it triggers me anymore. And I could actually embrace all these parts that I really got gifted by this experience really with, and own them back. And they made such a change in my path.
Yeah. I also have a very personal example that people might be able to resonate with, so that they can, you know, everyone's got their own story of realizing, oh, wow, I didn't realize that that's what I am, or who I'm becoming, or who I'm being. So for me, it was when we had our daughter. I was always sort of like the yes man. I would always say, yeah, no problem, I'll do it. Yep, no probs. No problem, no problem, no problem. And I would always, my wife needed more support. No problem, at the detriment of the company. No problem, I'll get it done. And I just, you know, kept doing that to the point where it really crushed me. Like I couldn't survive anymore, and I actually started to drink a lot. So to escape, like I needed to escape the real situation. I was in so much pain. And when I went and talked with someone about it, I talked to a lady who was just exceptional, like the way she talked, and she was straight at me. She's like, "You're angry," and I'm like, "I'm not angry. I'm never angry. Like, I just don't get angry." And like people that know me will be like, "I don't think you would ever get angry."
That's the problem, right?
And I was like, I'm not angry. And then, so anyway, she talking to me. We did our session. I went away, came back. Next session, you're angry. I was like, I'm so angry. Ah! And I was like, got so angry. And she was all about writing anger letters. Like, you write anger letters. And I realized that I was holding this anger down, so much anger. And when I finally let it out, it came out like a volcano. Which was not nice, like for my family or people around me. It was not nice. And it was short. It was a couple of months of me processing, journaling a lot, processing the anger, getting it out. But once that had happened, there was nothing left. Like, I'd processed it all and I wasn't holding on to anything. And I felt, like you explained at the start of the session, that inner, calmness that you were speaking about.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for sharing. And like, with anger, like it's usually there for a reason. Yeah, we get anger, but we all have a charge around it. And it sounds like you've had a charge around it. It's not okay to feel angry, so you would never feel it, right? Yeah. And so that's the thing. Like, we all have needs. We all have values and needs. And when we don't look after them, in the sense, because we think they're not as important, and who am I to ask for this and that? That's selfish. They're suffering. Whoever, whatever. All that is the charge around the emotion anger, or boundaries, right? So, but we need to look after our own values, and we can't expect anyone else to do that. And so the important thing is to just know that anger and frustration's just there to tell us that something's not fully in alignment. Yeah, that something's not quite right. It doesn't mean that the whole life is not good, that everything's a mess. It just means there's something that's out of place a little bit. And by tweaking it, by finding out with anger and frustration, we can find out there's something that needs to be tweaked slightly. And that's all. But we can't do that properly when we carry a lot of charge around the emotion. So this is where we can then work deeper with different modalities. And I just found it's extremely fast modalities that I've sort of combined. And with the spiral as well, it's so fast and so effective, where we can clear lifetimes worth of charges around these emotions. So anger being one of them. There's actually 22 on the scale of consciousness. And when we clear the charge around all of them, we can be okay feeling them, and we can also be okay not feeling them. And when we have them, we can move through them really fast, because we own all these parts back. And that's why it's so potent and powerful. So
So once someone has gone through this clearing process, however it happens, what are some things that they can expect, like feelings they'll feel, behaviors they'll notice? Like, what are some things that people, or people, examples that you've seen from, they've gone from this to this?
Oh, sure. Okay, so one example is a business client of mine that he has like big projects, like they're worth several millions, so they're big amounts. And in the past, he would be very skitty, like in terms of like thinking of a million ideas and projects, and he's like a genius, right? But getting really out of body and like not holding it. So then generating all these amazing projects, but then they kind of like would, I don't know, something would happen, right? And they would kind of float away. So the cash flow would be very low, and he wouldn't be able to hold on to the money. Yeah. So also he would say yes to all these bigger amounts coming in, and he would get really stressed and really, just frantic, right? And so that was even last year. And then we worked together in the end of the year, did the spiral together, and have had some sessions since. And at the end, towards the end of the spiral, he wasn't even finished yet. He had and he didn't tell me about it, right? So that was crazy, because before when we started, he said he's constantly expecting drama to happen. He's always looking for the drama, that something will happen straight away and take everything away. So he was quite under stress, and constantly kind of looking for like something will go wrong anyway, kind of thing. So then we did started working together, and towards the end of the spiral, it was actually quite funny, because we had a session, and not that it's funny generally, and usually I'm always able to tell, but for some reason he landed the certainty inside so much that he didn't show a sign that the night before he would almost lost his biggest projects, which meant he would have had to go bankrupt, right? So it was huge, but he didn't tell me about it. And I'm smiling here because I'm like, I can't believe that I didn't notice that. So that was one thing that just on a side note.
Yeah.
The following day, he said, oh, by the way, when I saw you yesterday, I didn't know yet if I was going to make it through with the business. And I felt strong, I felt calm. And then at 2 a.m. in the morning, which is not a time that usually any of those deals get made, it all came through positive. He won it back and he had everything super stable. So he said that was huge. And I was like, and even huger that he didn't even show a sign. In the past, he would have been a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, true. Then it continued from there. He had a phone call of a guy offering him a project of 15 million. So the size of his project before was always about 1.5, 2.5, 3. Yeah. So 15 million was big. So he was like, because he learned with me to master his inner certainty and knowing what's right and what's not right, in alignment with him and what's not. So he learned that his own body shows him that it's not alignment when he holds his breath. So that was his own way of finding out, right? So in this conversation, he held his breath and he went, hang on, it's not an alignment. And he gave it a no. And, you know, he came home and he was like, this is huge. I don't know, I feel really calm about it. I said no to this. And his wife went, you did what? Like freaked out, you know, and he was like, yeah. And no one could believe it because he's like, that's not me type thing, right? Yeah. The following day or 2 days later, I can't remember, 1 or 2 days later, the same guy called back and went, look, I find it quite impressive that you said no to that. So you're obviously not just after the money. And so therefore, I've got this other project that I wanted to run past you and see what you say. Of course, you can say no to it, but I just wanted to hear what you've got to say. And he shared it with him and he went, hell yes, that's like completely in alignment with my values, like completely on track. Yes. And he was like, okay, cool. It's 81. So 81 million, 81 right? Million. And so he was like, yes, because if he would have said yes to the one before, he would have been out of alignment. He would have been like struggling getting through it. Yeah. But he said yes to the 81, right? So that was a massive win. So that was really cool. And then with the changes now, he's been calm. Every time when I talk to him, he's like, yeah, I'm feeling calm. Is it weird? Should I be freaking out? I'm like, no. And he's like, no, I feel good. I'm seeing all these opportunities. I'm doing this, that. And like, we're just keeping him on track. And he's fantastic. Great, you know? Cool. So that's a longer story, but it's just showing a lot of like big shifts in a short amount of time.
Yeah, great example. Thanks for sharing that. So obviously, like off the back end of like clearing all these triggers, these past feelings, not fearing the future, there's a bunch of things that are going to be positives coming out of that. So we talked about before the optimization of flow and minimizing distraction and getting more focus. So can you just debrief us a little bit how that happens from these things?
So a major thing is, I guess, certainty. So I would like to talk about certainty as a main point here, because when we want to expand from comfort zone to danger zone, what we talked about before, as in like fully out of comfort zone, and we're really expanded, we'll face fears, right? We'll face a lot of stuff. We might feel really anxious or freaked out inside, or even like fear, like paralyzed. Yeah, we might feel like we have to push ourselves out of an airplane kind of feeling. So that feeling, that's normal, right? When we're like fully trying to expand really fast. So, but with clearing the charges, we don't have to feel like that at all. We can completely come back and feel really calm and just do something new that's completely out of our comfort zone, and do it with ease. And we can expand really fast that way. Yes, we still have certain things coming up depending on how fast we expand. Most people don't expand very fast in general, but you know, they might have an increase in revenue or one direction. But some of my clients are big leaders. They have big followings. They want to grow their masterminds and their clients, their followings, their exposure, being visibly seen in who they are. And I find that's where it shows so massively of how fast they can grow, not just revenue, but actually impact. Where they have their following increase so fast, where their like fellow leaders in their industry say, what on earth are you doing? Like, you are expanding so fast and you're more calm on stage and you're so present and you're like, your work's even improved. It was already amazing before. Like, what on earth are you doing? And so that's where like one of my clients calls me his secret weapon, because we do this work and he's just awesome. Like flying through. So it's a deep sense of inner certainty and a calmness in the body. that then radiates into everything, because you make more aligned choices. You say no to the things that are not in alignment. You say yes to the things that are, creating more space in your life that way. Being more quicker in flow, because you're not getting triggered everywhere and restless about all sorts of stuff, but you're really calm, on focus, and you're going with it. So it's like, it shows in life, in inner connection, in relationships, in business, and just the overall sense of fulfillment and calm. But in the business sense, we feel certainly a massive sense of inner certainty. It's just really present, not being affected by the shoulds and the woulds and the coulds, but actually just doing what you know you need to do. And yeah, I'm finding like it just, it blasts the brakes off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So just the living our dreams and going for what we know we yearn for and desire inside has been pretty much my focus for my whole life. Since I was tiny, I've always been attracting people into my life that would be living their dreams out of the norm, whatever. I'd always follow that and always do my own thing that way. And so I've explored tools my whole life, what helps to make that easier and faster. So there's like a whole, there's so many things we can do, and they all work at different speed and impact. But when we bring it back to the basic stuff that really works really fast, it can be so simple. And what I find really amazing with this work is that we don't have to dive through the stories. We don't have to super expand on it all. We can actually just acknowledge it and take the lesson out of it and let it go. And it can be as fast as like a few seconds or a few minutes. Yeah. And that's what I find extremely impactful with this, because like speaking even to one of my friends overseas, like she's in Germany, she drove to Austria for, I think she said, for a 5 or 6 month period to work on a trauma that was a long time ago. And we only spoke, we only speak once a year, twice a year. So I didn't know that she was in this process of driving like 3.5 hours one way, like huge, right? To this therapist for 6 months, 5-6 months. I was like, wow. And then in my head, I was thinking we could have done that within like a few minutes, maybe an hour, maybe 2, maybe 3, but still, like we don't have to go through much suffering and pain in order to address what's there that we don't want to face.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that hard. And also it doesn't have to feel like opening a can of worms at all either. Yeah. That's a big part. We do not have to worry about that with the work that can be done, because it doesn't have to be like that at all. It's actually really empowering.
What are some things that people can do at home? Like obviously right now, stuck at home, a lot of people have put this complete isolation barrier on themselves. Yeah. So what are some things that people can do at home, tools they can use, things they can think about, and to get them feeling more in line with what's actually happening right now and being accepting of the situation?
Okay, so I feel like there's quite a few things that can be shared with this. I would definitely say if you are currently constantly watching the news or scrolling social media and updating everything, I would say cut that down to a minimum, where you like pick maybe 2 or 3 sites or sources where it's really trustworthy information, and you just inform yourself with the updates, but then put it away again. Make sure you schedule some me time to just come back to yourself, and make sure you set yourself a bit of a structure of the day, especially if there's kids involved in homeschooling, all sorts of stuff, that it's just structured. So because without structure, a lot of personality types struggle. Even if you think you don't like structure, it's often very beneficial to bring in structure, just to kind of, especially the freedom lovers and the variety lovers, I am one. Structure is so important, because when it's not there, you easily get lost on a side, like on somewhere, but then not feeling very fulfilled after. And when it's structured, it can bring back that sense of, we're getting stuff achieved, and we can still be free in that structure. So I think that's really important. Bringing it back to self-care, like making sure you eat well, you drink lots of water, you do some movement. If you can go out for a walk or run or whatever, do that. But if you have on your small space, then set yourself up, I don't know, a few pillows, jump around over the couches, whatever you need to do to just get yourself moving a bit and more physical in that sense, because we're all different with that. And And just keep on bringing back to the breath as well. So if you feel really stressed or freaked out, bring it back to the breath, and really feeling into your body, even tensing your body and bringing your awareness all the way into your feet. So let it sink in from the head all the way down into the toes, just to bring the awareness into the body. If it feels uncomfortable there, just say, freaking uncomfortable here. I'm not usually here. It's okay. And just acknowledge it to yourself and see if that actually takes the edge off. One big thing too with emotions, for those people that are not really familiar with feeling emotions, as in, like you said before, anger. I'm not angry. I'm never angry. So if there's anything coming up that you're not familiar with, that you don't like feeling, because that can happen to all of us. We have all certain sensations we don't like, right? So just to be present with it and give it a name, just say, okay, I'm angry right now, or I'm sad right now. Even if your mind goes, yeah, but I shouldn't be sad, or why am I feeling sad right now, or why, oh no, I'm not. Just instead of going into the story of it, just go, yeah, I feel really heavy and sad right now. And just go, okay, and just allow yourself to feel it and take a few deep breaths and feel it. And then what you'll find is if you don't fight it, it will just go. It will just move to the next one. Traditional Chinese medicine has these 5 elements, and we move from one emotion to the next. If we don't fight it, whatever we're feeling, we'll move to the next, and it's gone. But if we fight it, we can sit in it for weeks, months, years, and stew.
Yeah,
and we don't need to do that.
Wow, some really good tips. Thank you so much. I'd just like to add one. Get some sunlight. Just go outside.
If you've got access to the sun, definitely go there.
Even if it's to the street, and get some sun on your body. Like people,
vitamin D.
Yeah, they're not getting enough sun at the moment. They're all cooped in the house, especially kids. Kids need sun. They need that. So even if it's just to the front driveway where you've got a little beam of sunlight coming through.
It just depends on where they live, right? I mean, I'm feeling myself, I consider myself super freaking lucky because I'm like 2 minutes from the beach. I can just go to the beach, it's empty, and you know, it's great. But some people are in cities, in high rises, I don't know, like what the setup is. So whatever you can do to get out, even on a tiny little balcony, wherever you are, get some sunshine, get some fresh breath, some fresh air, and just do that, like definitely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
San, I'm so grateful for your time today. Thank you for sharing so much of your learnings over your time, and I think this is going to really help a lot of people. So I really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.